After 6 years of marriage to Robert Miller, he took on a canary. The canary was beautiful, shrinking back whenever voices were raised even slightly. So, Robert Miller never lost his temper in front of her. But the canary wasn't content, she came causing a scene in front of me. Robert Miller flew into a rage and severely reprimanded her. The next day, she sent me a photo of her neck covered in hickeys. Sarah, Mr. Miller was so mean, I was so scared. I looked at the photo of her neck covered in hickeys and was silent for a long time. Yesterday, a woman named Tiffany came to see me. She said she was Robert Miller's girlfriend and hoped I would exit their lives. At first, I was stunned. My second reaction was that Robert Miller had cheated. The woman lifted her chin slightly, her eyes bright, radiating the brazenness of someone spoiled. I was still reeling in shock when the woman splashed a cup of lukewarm coffee on me. Hey, did you hear me? I'm telling you to divorce Robert Miller. I'm going to marry him. The brown liquid stained my new white dress, and my wet face made me look utterly pathetic. The woman wasn't satisfied. Ignoring the murmurs around us, she proudly touched her belly. I'm pregnant. I want to give the baby a proper name, otherwise, I wouldn't have come bothering you. I know you and Robert Miller are childhood sweethearts and have been married for 6 years, but you've been together for too long. Robert Miller only feels affection for you now, not love. You should be smart about this and leave him voluntarily. Maybe I can even get him to give you a generous settlement. Otherwise, don't blame me if I make him kick you out on the street. Robert Miller, kick me out on the street? A sudden laugh escaped me. The woman pointed at me, calling me crazy. What was I laughing at? I looked directly into her face. She was very pure, like a porcelain doll, but without a brain. I laughed at her. Little sister, did Robert Miller know you were calm? To see me? The woman's face turned red with anger, and she started swearing at me. I tilted my head, looking past her to Robert Miller striding towards us. Robert Miller's face was dark. He grabbed the woman's hand and slapped her hard across the face. The woman's face instantly swelled up, and a trickle of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears, she looked at Robert Miller in disbelief and utter fragility. Mr. Miller, you hit me. She cried like a wilting flower, but Robert Miller's expression didn't change. His eyes were full of coldness, and he told her to get lost in a chilling voice. The woman, her face full of grievance, covered her face and scurried away. After she left, Robert Miller, with a pained expression, pulled out tissues, knelt on one knee, and gently wiped the coffee stains from my face. Sweetheart, don't listen to her. I have nothing to do with her, she's just spouting nonsense. I looked down into his eyes. His dark eyes were bottomless, showing no hint of guilt. My eyes felt warm. I gently stroked his face. Robert Miller, tell me, who is she? Robert Miller's lips trembled slightly, and his eyes were moist at the corners. He wouldn't say, but I insisted on questioning him stubbornly until my face was flushed crimson and my breathing grew rapid. Only then did he say in a flustered, helpless rush, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I was wrong. Hit me, yell at me, punish me however you want, but please don't cry. You mustn't cry. He still remembered that I mustn't cry. I gave a self-deprecating laugh, my heart aching all over. Robert Miller was terrified. He drove me to the hospital, running red lights the whole way. He shouted for a doctor without caring about appearances. Looking at the panic in his eyes, I suddenly thought of the past. When I was 5, I was kidnapped. The kidnapper held a knife to my throat, demanding ransom from my father. That time, I was so scared I cried so hard I didn't breathe. After I was rescued, I was mute for a period. During that time, Robert Miller came to see me every day. He carefully kept me company, told me jokes. I didn't react to him, but he didn't care. Once, he got into a conflict with a classmate and had a fight. The other kid was fat, pinned Robert Miller down, and he nearly suffocated. In a burst of emotion, I called for the teacher. After that, I gradually started to speak again. Robert Miller was even happier than I was. Every day, he would provoke that kid, just to get me to talk more. Later, I found out that Robert Miller had fought that kid because the kid called me mute. Robert Miller wouldn't let anyone bully me, not even call me mute. After that, My mutism was cured, but I still couldn't cry. If I cried, I'd easily struggle to breathe, and in severe cases, I'd suffocate. From then on, Robert Miller was even more cautious with me. He said he would only make me laugh, and never make me cry. But now, because of him, I was being sent to the emergency room for resuscitation. When I woke up, Robert Miller kept begging me to forgive him, crying and saying he was wrong. He was so cautious, terrified I would leave him. I have a zero-tolerance policy for infidelity. Once unfaithful, I'm done. But with Robert Miller, I hesitated. It was like two parts of me were battling it out, the Robert Miller of my childhood and the Robert Miller of now. In the end, I gave in. Cut all ties with her, Robert Miller. You only get one chance. Robert Miller nodded excitedly, deleting all of Tiffany's contact information right in front of me. But the photo in front of me was like a sharp slap across my face. Robert Miller had lied to me again. Those hickeys, it was clear how passionate they had been last night. I took a deep breath and dialed a number I hadn't called in a long time. Professor Thompson, you said half a year ago that I could apply for an exchange program abroad. Is it still possible now? That exchange program half a year ago has ended. But if you're interested, you could go to Paris. There's a 3-year intensive study program there. Sweetheart, didn't you say you were trying to conceive and were putting your design work on hold for a while? In the second year of our marriage, both sets of parents started putting pressure to start a family. I didn't want to have kids, and Robert Miller took the pressure from me for a few years. Half a year ago, Professor Thompson said there was an opportunity for me to study abroad with a top designer. I couldn't wait to share the good news with Robert Miller, but I saw him dealing with our parents' pressure to start a family with a look of melancholy. So, I gave up the opportunity, thinking I'd have a child first. We tried for 6 months but couldn't get pregnant. So I wouldn't be disappointed. Robert Miller repeatedly said it was his fault. But now, Tiffany was pregnant. I licked my dry lips and replied, no need to try to conceive anymore. Let nature take its course. Soon, Professor Thompson sent me an email. Just as I finished filling out the application, Robert Miller came home. He bought a large bouquet of roses and an expensive necklace. I recognized it as a new item from a certain brand, but I just glanced at it indifferently, then threw it back into the drawer. Robert Miller was embarrassed and didn't know what to do. Sweetheart, are you still angry? Tell me what I need to do to help you cool down. Just say the word, and I'll do it. I turned my head away and went to hug Tuanzi on the sofa. Tuanzi was a British Shorthair Robert Miller had brought home 2 months ago. I love cats, but he didn't, so we never had one all these years. The day he brought him home, I was feeling down because I was trying to conceive. Seeing the cat, all my bad mood vanished instantly. Robert Miller saw Tuanzi as a good luck charm and took the initiative to care for its every need. Sweetheart, how about I take you out to sea? You won. Ted to see the ocean, right? We'll go on a cruise ship and watch the stars on the deck at night. I know it's hard to make you forget yesterday right away, but I'll try my best, sweetheart. I'll always be the Robert Miller you love. That will never change, I swear. Looking at the man kneeling on the floor making vows, I felt empty inside. On a whim, I nodded. Robert Miller was overjoyed, completely shedding his previous gloom, and impatiently went to book tickets and plan the trip. Perhaps seeing me giving him the cold shoulder, Tiffany became increasingly audacious. She sent a photo of a corgi. Sarah, this is Mr. Miller's gift to make me happy, but I really like dogs, so I won't give it to you this time. Oh, and how's that cat? I'm allergic to cat hair, so I can't keep it, but Mr. Miller gave it to me, and I couldn't bear to get rid of it. He said you liked it, so he let you keep it. Sarah, between a cat and a dog fight, who do you think would win? My blood ran cold, my mind went blank. So, Robert Miller didn't buy it specifically for me. Tiffany didn't want it, so he just picked it up and brought it home. The cat let out a wail, then jumped to the floor. I looked down and saw I had a few cat hairs in my hand. Robert Miller booked the tickets and even booked a luxurious king-size room. I looked at the date, the 3rd of next month, in 7 days. If my application went through smoothly, the 3rd of next month would also be the day I was supposed to go abroad. That night, Robert Miller still thoughtfully poured me a glass of milk. His eyes were filled with desire. I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. As I raised my hand, I accidentally knocked over the milk. The white liquid soaked the sheets, but Robert Miller anxiously checked if I was hurt. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Did you get burned anywhere?" My eyes were red, and my throat felt dry. "I'm fine." Robert Miller sighed in relief, patiently cleaning up the mess, watching his back as he went in and out. It all felt unreal. Robert Miller, which one is the real you? After changing the sheets, Robert Miller looked tired. Just then, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and said with a normal expression that it was company business he needed to handle and told me to get some rest. I hummed in response, also relieved. I didn't want to be intimate with him anymore. Robert Miller went to the study. I couldn't sleep either, so I wanted to go to the study to find something to read before bed. As I opened the door, Robert Miller's voice came through. "Don't worry, I won't let sweetheart get pregnant before your child is born. She drinks milk every day. I ground up the birth control pills into powder, she can't taste it. She's still angry. How about I take you out to sea? We can watch the stars on the deck when we're there." Birth control pills? That nightly glass of milk, a bedtime essential, was actually filled with birth control pills. I stumbled back to the bedroom in a daze, my body trembling uncontrollably. I desperately wanted to do something to calm myself down. I organized the vanity table, the closet. But when I saw the red lace lingerie in the closet, I completely broke down. I never wore that kind of lingerie. It wasn't mine, which meant it belonged to someone else. The name Tiffany was like a thorn, stuck in my heart, impossible to pull out. Suddenly, my phone chimed. My application was accepted. I needed to report to Paris on the 3rd of next month. I clenched my fists, closed my eyes, and calmed down. An hour later, the space beside me dipped for a moment. Robert Miller hugged me from behind as usual. I stiffened and spoke in the dark. "Robert Miller, are you completely done with Tiffany?" The person behind me stiffened. The next second, he said, "Of course, I'm completely done with her, sweetheart. I wouldn't lie to you." My heart sank further and further. I don't know when, but Robert Miller had changed, become unrecognizable. I turned over to face him. In the dim light, I looked into his eyes and said decisively, "Robert Miller, don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I will never forgive you, and I will leave you forever." Robert Miller was taken aback. He looked at me with eyes full of sincerity and said, "Sweetheart, I swear, I will never lie to you, because I can't bear the cost of losing you." We stared at each other for a long time. His eyes were very bright, I couldn't see even a trace of guilt. After a moment, I closed my eyes, and suppressed the bitterness in my heart. The third arrived quickly. Robert Miller took me to feel the wind on the deck. Someone struck up a conversation with him. He gently pulled me into his arms. "Sorry, I'm married. I love my wife very much, and I am devoted to her my whole life." The woman's eyes were full of envy, saying how lucky I was to have a husband who was handsome, rich, and faithful. I managed a weak smile, catching a glimpse of that white figure out of the corner of my eye. That night, Robert Miller held me as we watched the stars on the deck. His phone kept ringing. Looking at his furrowed brow, I said softly, "Do you have something urgent?" Robert Miller turned off his phone and shook his head. "No, all my time is yours, sweetheart. I've really changed, believe me." I smiled, humming in response, but didn't say I believed him. Robert Miller seemed very agitated, his lips pressed tightly together, his brow furrowed. I remained silent. Finally, he spoke. "Sweetheart, I have some work to handle. Will you stay here and watch for a bit?" "Urgent work? Urgent?" Clearly, someone else was impatient. "Okay, you go ahead." Robert Miller kissed my forehead and stroked the top of my head. "My sweetheart is so good, gentle, and understanding. Be a good girl, I'll be back soon. Wrap yourself in the blanket, don't catch a cold." As soon as Robert Miller left, I lost interest. I quietly followed him. He went into the room next to mine and impatiently closed the door. Soon, a few whispered words came from inside. "Honey, I'm really jealous. You spent the whole day with her." "I don't care, you have to spend the whole night with me tonight." "Not tonight. I'll take you out alone next time, and all the time will be yours. Right now, Let me see the baby. Listening to the intimacy inside, I turned and called for a server. Is the small boat I requested ready? It's ready. You can leave now. I got off the cruise ship and onto the small boat. As I was leaving, my phone started buzzing repeatedly. Sarah, you must have seen me, right? Do you believe now that Robert Miller loves me? To keep me happy during my pregnancy, he gave you milk with birth control pills every day, Sarah. He promised me he'd divorce you and marry me as Mrs. Miller once I had the baby. So what if you were childhood sweethearts? It's no match for fate. On the screen was a photo. Robert Miller looked deeply in love as he cupped Tiffany's face and kissed her tenderly. I turned off the screen and handed the phone to the server. Could you please give this to the gentleman I was with? Tell him Sarah Miller doesn't want him anymore. While the server was stunned, my boat pulled away. For some reason, Robert Miller felt a sense of unease. This feeling was similar to the day Tiffany caused a scene in front of Sweetheart. Tiffany sensed his distraction and mumbled discontentedly, Mr. Miller, are you spacing out right now? Are you thinking about Sarah? If you miss her that much, just go see her. It's not like I'm important to you anyway. Robert Miller snapped back to attention, then thought he was just worrying needlessly. They were at sea. Sweetheart was watching the stars on the deck. She wouldn't leave, she couldn't leave. The person beneath him was too captivating. Soon, Robert Miller was lost in the act. When he finished and went to look for Sweetheart, it was 2 hours later. But Sweetheart was nowhere to be seen on the deck. Robert Miller's brow furrowed slightly. That feeling of unease returned. Perhaps Sweetheart had gone back to the room. Robert Miller hurried to the room. He searched the room high and low but still found no sign of Sweetheart. Robert Miller's heart pounded like thunder. Usually calm and composed, he was so panicked now he couldn't even think. He grabbed someone and asked if they had seen his Sweetheart, but still found nothing. Sweetheart, Sweetheart. Robert Miller panicked. Suddenly, he remembered what Sweetheart had said that night. She had said, Robert Miller, don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I will never forgive you, and I will leave you forever. No, it couldn't be. They were at sea, Sweetheart had no way to leave. Robert Miller's eyes were slightly red-rimmed, but that feeling of unease wouldn't go away. Just then, a server found him. Sir, a lady asked me to give this to you. She left you a message, Sarah Miller doesn't want you anymore. Robert Miller froze for a moment. That phone was Sweetheart's. But what did that message mean? What did Sarah Miller doesn't want him anymore mean? He grabbed the server's arm, saying urgently, where is Sweetheart? Where is she? The server pointed in a direction. That lady left by boat 2 hours ago. Robert Miller suddenly lost all his strength. He stared blankly at the dark sea. It took him a long time to process the message. Sweetheart left by boat? She's gone? Impossible. Robert Miller shook his head in disbelief. How could she leave? She promised to wait for me on the deck. It's so late, where could she even go? He took out his phone to call Sweetheart, but the moment the vibration came from his hand, his mind went blank. He forgot how to breathe. The light shone on him, adding an intangible sense of desolation. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, and several messages popped up on the screen. Robert Miller looked at the messages, his face instantly turning ashen. Old woman, good thing you're smart enough to know WHE. And to get lost. Since you've gotten lost, don't ever come back. Don't let me look down on you. Robert Miller's breath hitched. His fingertips trembled. The further up he scrolled, the colder his heart grew from the messages. So Sweetheart knew all along that he was lying to her. She knew he hadn't broken up with Tiffany. She even knew about the birth control pills. Robert Miller suddenly doubled over. He could barely breathe, his heart ached so much he felt like he was suffocating. Sweetheart. Sweetheart. His Sweetheart, she really didn't want him anymore. Tiffany curled her lips, sending messages to humiliate Sarah Miller with reckless abandon. Suddenly, the door was kicked open with a bang. Robert Miller's face was dark, emanating a chilling aura. Tiffany was startled, but quickly composed herself, rushing towards him with a smile. Robert Miller, you're back. Is Sarah asleep? Will you stay with me all night tonight? You have no idea how much I missed you. I don't want to be apart from you for a single second. With that, she stood on her tiptoes and leaned in to kiss Robert Miller. Robert Miller's eyes were cold. He pulled away her hand wrapped around his neck, his thin lips parting. Did you go see Sweetheart? Tiffany froze for a moment, a hint of guilt flickered in her eyes. But how could she admit it? If Robert Miller found out she provoked Sarah Miller, he definitely wouldn't let her off the hook. She still remembered how much that slap hurt. That night, Robert Miller had originally intended to break things off with her. If she hadn't cried so hysterically and drugged him to seduce him, she wouldn't know what kind of life she'd be living now. So, she absolutely couldn't admit it. No, Mr. Miller, are you doubting me? But I remember your warning that day. How could I dare go see Sarah again? I really didn't go see her, I swear. Robert Miller looked at the woman's affected manner, and a wave of disgust surged within him. How could he ever have though? Tiffany was like Sweetheart? She wasn't. Not at all. Sweetheart would never be so artificial, much less drug him and do such a despicable thing. Sweetheart was the moon in the sky, and what was Tiffany? Mud on the ground. Robert Miller's last bit of idealized perception of Tiffany vanished. Mr. Miller, you have to believe me. I really didn't go see Sarah. Tiffany was crying heartbrokenly. The next second, Robert Miller, his face ashen, slapped her hard. Bitch, you dare lie to me? Do you think I'm blind, that I really can't see anything? You provoked Sweetheart, and you dare covet the position of Mrs. Miller. I'm telling you, the position of Mrs. Miller can only be Sweetheart's. Only she deserves to be my wife. What are you? Just someone who sells themselves. What right do you have to put on airs? Bitch, give me back Sweetheart, give her back. Robert Miller kicked Tiffany viciously. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with hate. If that bitch Tiffany hadn't been presumptuous from being spoiled and gone to see Sweetheart, Sweetheart wouldn't have known about her existence, wouldn't have cried and been sent to the emergency room, and wouldn't have left in disappointment. It was all that bitch Tiffany's fault. Tiffany held in pain. Robert Miller put all his force into every kick. She cried and begged for mercy. Mr. Miller, no. I'm carrying your child. Please stop hitting me, please. Child? Hearing those two words, Robert Miller's fury intensified. He stomped on Tiffany's swollen belly, saying through gritted teeth, Child? You? You deserve to have my child? A bastard. It should have died already. Saying this, he stomped down hard. Soon, a smell of blood spread through the room. Tiffany's face was deathly pale, drenched in sweat, and she let out a piercing scream that echoed through the room. Someone heard the commotion and rushed in, only to see the woman lying in a pool of blood, her body covered in bruises. Robert Miller rushed onto the bridge, forcing the officer to return. Out at sea, the cruise ship headed for shore at maximum speed. Robert Miller thought, perhaps Sweetheart was just upset and went home temporarily. She wouldn't truly leave him. They had over 20 years together, she couldn't leave him. Robert Miller got home and saw the room that looked largely unchanged. He finally sighed in relief. Nothing was missing from the house. It seemed Sweetheart really hadn't left. But when he saw the closet was half empty, and Sweetheart's usual things were gone, that sense of panic washed over him again. Until he looked at the wedding photo on the wall, which should have shown both of them, but now only showed him. He collapsed completely onto the floor. If he had been clinging to a sliver of hope on the cruise ship, now he was utterly devastated. Sarah Miller really didn't want him anymore. 3 years later, I finished my studies and returned home to participate in a design competition. Coincidentally, the competition was held in Pine Valley. The moment I stepped onto the familiar ground, I suddenly felt like a lifetime had passed. I thought Robert Miller and I would never see each other again in this lifetime. But the reunion after 3 years came so quickly. He was a special guest at the competition. I stood on the stage, presenting my work. His intense gaze felt like thorns in my back. After the competition finally ended, I wanted to avoid him and leave. Suddenly, a large hand pulled me into the stairwell. Then a figure pressed in on me. Robert Miller braced his hands against the wall, trapping me between him and the wall. His eyes were red-rimmed, and the muscles in his cheeks were trembling. His voice was hoarse as he spoke. Sarah Miller, you actually came back? 3 years, I've been searching for you for 3 whole years. Do you have a heart at all? 3 years, and you wouldn't contact me once. Do you know how much I missed you? Saying this, he buried his face in my neck and began to sobbed softly. Sweetheart, I truly know I was wrong this time. 3 years, I've waited for so long. His arms were wrapped tightly around my waist, as if he was afraid I'd run away. His appearance now couldn't help but remind me of 3 years ago, when Tiffany came and caused a scene in front of me. Back then, he was the same way, holding me tightly, crying and saying he was wrong, kneeling and vowing never to do it again. But what happened? He still couldn't bring himself to give up Tiffany. 3 years, his child must be almost 2 now. I tried to push Robert Miller away, but I couldn't even lift my hands. After a moment, I sighed softly. Robert Miller, let go of me. No. He shook his head, crying. I won't let go, sweetheart. I'll never let go of you again. I won't let what happened on the cruise ship that night happen a second time. I closed my eyes. Unlike the struggle and conflict of 3 years ago, this time, I only felt annoyance and helplessness. I said calmly, if you don't let go, I'll call for help. You'll be the only one embarrassed. Robert Miller looked at me in disbelief, as if he hadn't expected me to be so resolute. I guess that's understandable. Tiffany splashed coffee all over me 3 years ago, and didn't I still forgive him? 3 years later, he's vowing and apologizing again, so I should forgive him, right? But my attitude was completely different from what he expected. He was shocked and couldn't accept it for a moment, which I guess is understandable. While Robert Miller was stunned, I slipped out of his embrace. His expression turned panicked. He reached out to grab me. I quickly stepped back 2 steps, avoiding his touch. Sweetheart. Robert Miller, we ended things 3 years ago. You must have signed the divorce papers by now, so let's not drag this out. Before I left, I had a lawyer draft a divorce agreement and handle my divorce from Robert Miller. After going abroad, I changed my phone number and didn't keep in touch. Ouch with that lawyer either. Considering how much Robert Miller liked Tiffany, he should have signed it readily. But Robert Miller's face turned pale, and he shook his head painfully. I didn't sign it, sweetheart. I was busy looking for you during that time. I completely ignored that lawyer. Even if he pestered me relentlessly, I wouldn't have signed it, sweetheart. From the moment I married you, I never thought about divorcing you. I laughed suddenly, saying sarcastically, back then, you also said you would never betray me. Back when Robert Miller proposed to me, he repeatedly promised my parents that he would love and cherish me for my whole life, and never betray me. But what happened? There's a saying, a man's promises are no different from a dog's bark. Robert Miller's face was ashen, his lips trembled slightly, and he tried to speak several times but couldn't. Listening to the sounds outside the stairwell, I said my final words. Robert Miller, we're over. You should let go too. His voice was trembling as he spoke. No, Sarah Miller, we'll never be over. I didn't plan to stay in Pine Valley permanently, so I just stayed at a hotel. I don't know how Robert Miller found out my room number, but when I was getting ready to go out for dinner, I opened the door and saw him squatting outside my room. He was looking up, like a pitiful little dog. I suddenly remembered when he was 17. Robert Miller wanted to go to the same university as me to study design, but his father insisted he study finance. He had a huge fight with him over it. In the dead of winter, late at night, he ran out, terrifying Robert's family. Finally, I found him at the amusement park we used to go to. He was like a pathetic little dog then too, wearing thin clothes, curled up in a ball. When he saw me, he gave a bitter smile. I can't even choose the path I want to take. I'm completely useless, Sarah Miller. You're not allowed to laugh at me. I didn't laugh at him. Instead, I too carried him home. Looking at those eyes filled with grievance, my heart paused for a moment. Sweetheart, you're awake. I just wanted to see you. Don't worry, I won't bother you. I just wanted to be closer to you. Robert Miller pressed his lips together, nervously fiddling with the corner of his clothes. I ignored him. When I got into the elevator, he hesitated and didn't follow. I took a walk downstairs at the hotel. I suddenly remembered Robert Miller and I weren't divorced yet. So, I contacted the lawyer from 3 years ago and drafted another divorce agreement. When I got back to the hotel, Robert Miller was no longer there. Looking at the empty hallway, so Robert Miller couldn't stand the silent treatment either. My room faced the stairwell, where a faint light shone. My heart jumped, and I called security. I thought it was a prowler, but it turned out to be Robert Miller. He was sitting on the stairs with a laptop on his lap, working. The flashlight beam made him squint. The security guard looked at me with a puzzled expression. Ms. Miller, you're not saying he's the suspicious person, are you? Dressed in a suit like that, he doesn't look like one. Robert Miller had a mournful look. Sweetheart, is that what you see me as? Then he said to the security guards, my wife and I are having a little disagreement. Is that something you need to get involved in? The security guards exchanged glances, shook their heads, and left. I looked at Robert Miller, whose eyes were filled with hope, looked away, and turned to go back into my room. Suddenly, a large hand grabbed my wrist. Sweetheart, it's really cold tonight, and the hotel doesn't have any empty rooms. Can you let me stay for the night? I tried to pull my hand away. After several attempts, I couldn't, so I gave up. I said coldly, Robert Miller, I remember you have dozens of properties in Pine Valley. You could go to any one of them and have a bed to sleep in. Why debase yourself and crowd into one room with me? Besides, aren't you afraid your wife will get jealous doing this? Robert Miller froze for a moment, saying blankly, my wife? That's you, isn't it? I gave a sarcastic laugh. Don't tell me Tiffany gave you a child, but you didn't plan to marry her? Sweetheart, so that's what you're worried about. You misunderstood. How could I possibly let another woman have my child? I cut things off with Tiffany as soon as you left. I've been waiting for you these past 3 years, there's been no one else. Professor Thompson contacted me 3 years ago, saying Robert Miller had been looking for me and asking if I wanted to contact him. I changed my phone number specifically to avoid Robert Miller. 3 years. I didn't expect him to be so persistent. But I already gave him a chance. Robert Miller, have you forgotten what you did to me? You knew I gave up my work to have a child, yet you gave me birth control pills while I was trying to conceive. That glass of milk I thought was full of love was actually poison you gave me. When you repeatedly lied to me and hurt me for Tiffany, didn't you ever think about how I would feel? Wait for me? What right do you have to wait for me? And what makes you think that just because you waited, I would definitely come back? Robert Miller looked like he had been dealt a massive blow. He kept repeating that's not true, but in the end, even he couldn't refute it. Because it was all true, he couldn't argue against it. Sweetheart, I was an asshole. But I've only ever loved you. I was just temporarily infatuated, I was seduced by her. Don't put all the blame on someone else, Robert Miller. You're not some great man, and you're not innocent. You're the one who couldn't control himself. I've had the lawyer draft a new divorce agreement. You should sign it when you get it. Let's part ways amicably. With that, I turned and went into the room, not giving Robert Miller another look. The divorce agreement was read to me the next day. The moment Robert Miller got the agreement, he tore it up. I won't sign it, Sarah Miller. It's okay if I can't win you back in 3 years. I have 3 years, 30 years. I'll show you how I've changed. Sweetheart, please just try to see me. We used to be so close, we promised we'd never be apart. Robert Miller's eyes turned red. Thinking of the past, we both fell silent. Robert Miller and I were caught in a strange cycle. I was only trying to divorce, he was only trying to win me back. We were like two opposing lines, both striving towards our own goals. That day, Robert Miller was no longer outside the hotel. I sighed in relief, thinking he had finally given up. But I received a call from Robert's mother, hearing that Robert Miller was in the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, Robert Miller was getting in for drip. Perhaps I had been truly annoyed by his persistence, so much so that I hadn't taken a good look at him during this time. Looking closely now, I saw he had lost a lot of weight, his eyes were sunken. Was he that tired? When he saw me, he offered a comforting smile. Sweetheart, you came. Did you eat breakfast? I was going to bring you some, but I fainted in the stairwell. I'm sorry I worried you. Oh, right, you've always wanted to divorce me, haven't you? I've signed the papers. Let's get divorced. The divorce papers were newly drafted. He gave me 80% of his assets. Why? His change in attitude was so sudden, it made me uneasy. Robert Miller smiled. You don't think I'm trying to trick you, do you? I just suddenly understood. These past few days, I waited in the stairwell every day, sweetheart. No one stays the same forever. That goes for you, and it goes for me. I'm tired. Alright, I knew it. Robert Miller and I successfully divorced. Robert's mother looked at me several times, seeming hesitant to speak. The day I flew to Paris, both Robert Miller and Robert's mother came to the airport. Robert Miller seemed to have lost even more weight. He reminded me to be careful with a normal expression. Sweetheart, even if we're divorced, you can't find a new man too quickly. Why not? We had over 20 years together. Are you going to forget that in just a few years? No, you can't forget me that quickly. It will hurt. I scoffed. Since divorcing Robert Miller, it felt like we were back to how we used to be. The announcement for my flight came over the loudspeaker. Robert Miller was still muttering endlessly. I didn't want to listen, so I picked up my suitcase and left. Outside the airport, Robert Miller watched the plane take off with reluctance. Robert's mother looked at his gaunt face, her eyes turning red. You were doing so well back then, why did you do something to wrong sweetheart? Now that you've changed, why aren't you trying to win her back? Robert Miller gave a sorrowful smile. Mom, how much longer do you think I have to live? Why would I drag sweetheart down with me? That day, he had originally planned to buy sweetheart her favorite comfort food, but when he went upstairs, he suddenly blacked out and fainted. When he woke up, he was in the hospital. The doctor said he had a growth on his liver. It was already late stage, he had at most 3 months to live. He had seen too many late-stage cancer patients, gaunt faces, just skin and bones. He didn't want sweetheart to see him like that. He still wanted sweetheart to remember him as the handsome man he was. But he didn't want sweetheart to find another man. He would be jealous. In the 3rd month after flying to Paris, I received a call from Robert Miller. I thought he was going to pester me again, but the voice on the other end was Robert's mother. Sweetheart, Robert Miller. Robert Miller is gone. I didn't react for a moment, and subconsciously asked where he had gone. But all I got in response was Robert's mother's crying. Suddenly I remembered Robert Miller's gaunt face, and it hit me, as gone, he was dead. Robert Miller was dead. By the time I rushed back, he had already been buried. The black and white photo on the gravestone was of Robert Miller at 22. His eyes were smiling, and the suit he was wearing was the one from our wedding. It was as if I had forgotten how to react. I just stared blankly at the photo. It was like seeing Robert Miller at 22. Sarah Miller before she was 22 never imagined she would be separated from the Robert Miller she loved most. Robert Miller before he was 22 never imagined he would betray the Sarah Miller he loved most.